Victorian High Country is synonymous with motorcycle adventure. A ruggedly beautiful landscape with a huge range of tracks and trails that can equally satisfy the hardcore dirt-oriented adventurer right through to those just kicking off their adventure career. This is an outstanding place to test the credentials of any bike that claims to be a dual sporter. And this is the place Clubby and I have chosen to test the 2024 Honda CRF450RL.
Hi, my name's Dave Darcy and you're watching Motorcycle Adventure Dirt Bike TV. And our test for this week is the Honda CRF450RL. It's come back into Australia after a 2-year absence and it's a lot better value. But you know what? It's got some competition. Bring in the competition, Clubby.
Here it is, Dave. Right from the Honda factory as well.
Honda CRF Rally 300, and there it is. So if you like Mad TV and you like thorough reviews where we really go out and test the bikes in a whole range of conditions, please subscribe to the channel, or better still, become a member.
I caution, this test is about looking at this bike through the eyes of two experienced adventurers. For those new to adventure or considering their first bike, this review will give you some ideas, even if you're not interested in the Honda. For the old hands, there's some head-to-head engine performance comparisons with some surprising results. We've got two versions, the bike ridden straight off the showroom floor and a slightly modified version with Vortex ignition that has been built by motorcycle legend Daryl Beattie. Chris Watson, also a motorcycle legend, showcases his build. This will be a warts and all review with detailed comparisons between engine performance, fuel economy and suspension, and finally we'll compare the bike to its key competitors in the adventure world. It may surprise you, despite a smaller engine size, the mighty Honda CRF300 Rally gives the 450 a run for its money as an adventure mount.
They look gorgeous, Dave.
They do. I love the red.
Haven't they just made it look $1,000,000, mate? Jet Lawrence, how do you do?
Jet Lawrence edition. The first thing that strikes you with a Honda is they're beautifully made, aren't they? They're beautifully built.
Always.
Yeah. It looks lovely. All the fitments are good. It just comes up great. So the huge advantage we've got this time with this test is here we've got the bog standard CRF450 and Clubby's got one that's been made for Daryl Beattie. Now Daryl Beattie's the desert king in terms of tours and that. So what Daryl puts on a bike, it probably gives you a very strong hint. It's what's necessary to take it out in the dirt.
Daryl knows his stuff, doesn't he, mate? He's been running his tours through Daryl Beattie Adventures for years now, and this is the backbone of his off-road operation, the 450L.
Yeah.
Or the new RL as it's designated now. And this one's come loaded up, the Nomad, 11 litre fuel tank, Michelin tyres, the Honda CRF bash plate. Yeah. What else have we got on it? Bark busters, good old Aussie bark busters, but then tucked in under the seat, the really important component is that Vortex ECU ignition, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is put your mind in adventure rather than dirt. And what potential does this bike have for adventure? And so that's how we're looking at it. So that's the lens we're looking at it through. And so a couple of things come to mind straight away for me. 7.5 litres?
7.6 litres you're playing with, Dave.
7.6 litres, not quite enough for an adventure bike, but we've got a resolution to that. We've got a seat that kind of emulates a piece of 4x2 hardwood. So this bike comes in at just under 13,800 on road.
Yep,
in
that's
Australia.
Here in Sydney pricing.
Yeah, but it's got some impressive features, and the first one that sticks out for me is the suspension. Fully adjustable, and I'll get to that straight away because, you know, sometimes when you adjust clickers, they don't mean much, they don't respond, the suspension doesn't respond. On this bike, trust me, they respond. Already, Clubby and I have ridden both, and there's an enormous difference. So when we get out in the trail, we're going to fiddle with the clickers because I want to make this bike similar to that one because Daryl has nailed the adjustment for the suspension. Country we go.
Clubby and I want to get our head round the differences in the power of the two bikes. We know the standard engine is down on power, but how does that difference affect its adventure credentials?
So Clubby, if there was a test to see the difference between these two bikes, this has got to be it. Everyone's going to see it. We're going to start down that corner and we're just going to come up here and the test ends at that bunch of trees. All right, Clubby, to the clumps of those trees. Ready, set, go. I'm into third. I'm revving its ring. Now I might catch him on the corners simply because I can take corners all right. But now we're back on it, which is really a good test. Ready, set, go. Holy shit.
I don't think that's a fair fight, Dave.
Mate, that's a huge difference.
Just more than huge, mate, isn't it?
It's a great thing to do. It's a great thing to show viewers the difference.
Absolutely.
But again, I think a learner may get themselves into trouble with this, maybe not, but that they certainly won't. It's nice and safe. The other thing the Vortex does is give you third gear. Like I'm in third and Clubby's in second. I can hear the difference. That's another thing, Clubby. With the Vortex, you were in second then.
Yeah.
I was in third.
Yeah, it'll pull here, and I was here and a half more.
Yeah, no, it's a huge difference. Yeah, so both engines very, very different. It's like riding, this bike seems like it's got 100 cc's more than this bike. That's the easiest way to describe it in terms of power. I'm noticing you're up a higher gear. Every time I ride that, I'm riding a higher gear than this one. So the power on this is down, and experienced riders will be frustrated with it, I think. But for learners, I think this is a cracking package. Yeah, it signs off at around 5.5, 6 grand, but yeah, and a huge difference between the two. In fact, about 25%. We'll get on that in a minute. But still, this bike goes. It's snappy off the bottom end. You can get it to lift over logs and stuff. It's useful power. So we go to this one, and it's just a completely different bike. And because of the engine power, it allows you to do more things in terms of handling. You can power slide. You can wheel stand in first, second, and third quite easily. It really makes the bike, but there is a cost to that, and that's fuel economy. And when we've tested these bikes, it's about 25% more fuel for this one. Now, the hilarious point is, this is 11 litres, and that one over there is 7.6 litres. That's getting 140 k's to a tank, and this one, despite having more fuel, is probably going to sit around, I don't know, 180, Clubby?
I'd say on a good day.
Yeah, 180.
For where we've been riding.
So despite having the extra fuel tank, putting that extra weight in, you're only 40 kilometres difference with the Vortex fuel injection. It's a lot of fun, this engine, and it really exploits the full potential of the suspension of the bikes.
Okay, we've got two engines to talk about, Dave.
Yep.
Standard, very, I guess the word I call is doughy.
Yep.
Like it's got the response off the bottom, but then it turns into dough in the middle with all that, the restrictions that it has to bring that power level down for LAMS legality, emissions legality, and it just really misses in upper mid-range performance. But still rideable,
much on engine
Okay,
power?
I'll use the word doughy. I intimated doughiness over there. Forget doughiness. There's no doughiness on this bike.
Yeah.
It just makes constant power all the way through the rev range.
Yep.
I'm a gear higher than you on every uphill.
You are.
I'm showering you in rocks for like one of the few times in history that I'm showering you in rocks. But yeah, that's purely related to the motor and that Vortex ignition and the state of tune.
Fuel economy.
I'd like to borrow a litre of fuel off you to get home, Dave.
I know.
You've made me aware of how much more fuel this one uses now.
The High Country is the ideal place to test suspension for adventure. From fast-flowing spectacular ridge runs, big erosion mounds, steep boulder-ridden downhills and single trail that can get as technical as Romaniacs if you like. But in equal measure there's well-prepared tracks for just cruising along, fantastic for those starting their adventure journey. Both bikes have standard suspension, but the Vortex bike has had its clickers adjusted by Daryl Beattie, and there is a big difference between that and the standard bike. The standard bike's forks are much harsher in the first portion of the stroke, and this is causing the bike to deflect off rocks on steep descents. The great thing I know is the solution is just a couple of clicks away.
Hey, I'm not the best jumper in the road. I'm just a pensioner, gives it his best, but I know adventure bikes pretty well. So we've got the standard suspension, which is pretty firm at the moment, but can be adjusted, and then we've got the suspension set up by Daryl Beattie on that one. So let's try them head to head on this, on these two decent jumps. Let's see what happens. Model, the suspension on this one's firmer than on Daryl's, and that's the beauty of the Honda suspension. This is fully adjustable. Rebound, compression, everything. Yeah, so alright, it's a bit sloppy that second jump, but what's killing me is the power. I don't have enough power. There's nowhere near bottoming out, and I think it just needs a bit of a tune. Whoa! Okay, I'll go a little bit harder this time. Alright. Yeah. I'm certainly not the best motocrosser in the world. But these are good tests. Land so softly. Oh, I was really happy with that. It's interesting, the Honda manual is so comprehensive in terms of setting up suspension, and what they recommend is one click at a time. So tomorrow we'll do a bit of that, but in terms of those bigger jumps, mate, that's soaking that up perfectly. It's really, really good. All right, let's take this other one for a burn. So this is a Daryl Beattie one. Alrighty, let's see what happens, Gunga Din.
Come on, give it some, son.
Yeah, well, this has got a bit more poke. It's like being on a different bike. That's what it's like. So for those who like power, the 450 can be tuned to give you power. Don't worry about that. Here we go. Oh, that is so much better. You know, those other settings were okay, but this one's got trail feel and the resistance for the big hits. That's really good suspension. Woo-hoo! I run off and stolen Clubby's bike. It's interesting, this suspension's got a bit more give, particularly for their soft stuff, so you got more trail feel. So I'm much happier going down this slippery, rocky, pretty steep hill on this bike rather than the one I've got at the moment, because you've just got enough feel. The bike is rolling over stuff, it's not deflecting.
Now, in the Honda manual, because I've read the manual, it's the best manual in the world I've ever ridden, what it says is before you do anything in adjusting, you need to bleed the air out of the forks. So you just got to have the forks off the ground. So let's do that.
Now, before we start fiddling with clickers out on the trail, to set up a bike for the best suspension performance, the starting point is to get the correct springs for your weight and intended purpose and ensure the static sag measurement is within limits. With press bikes, we don't have that luxury and we get standard springs. Under the load of our heavy weight, the rear of the bike is sagging a little, but I was impressed with its performance and left compression and rebound settings alone. We found Darrell's setting was standard compression and 1 click softer for rebound. To copy the performance of Darrell's bike, I had to soften compression by 2 clicks softer than standard and soften rebound by 1 click softer than standard. The whole point of the exercise was to gain an appreciation of how responsive the forks were to clicker changes and get the best out of the bike in these conditions.
Haven't said this in a long time. This shower suspension is the best suspension I've ridden on in many years, just straight flat off the showroom floor, but equally as good as the handling. It's got a long wheelbase, 28.5 degree steering head angle, and that makes a huge difference. So when we're in this really rocky stuff, and I've got some great video of that, the bike isn't dancing around or getting deflected. It just holds its line. It's an easy bike to ride. And because of that, I highly recommend this. If you were getting into adventure riding, and this is a Lamb's approved bike, this is a great place to start. And you might say, oh, the engine's down on power. Well, put the engine aside for a moment. If you could fully exploit and use the frame and suspension of this bike to its max, and then you decided to get more power, I'd be happy with that. But I can tell you, you'll be occupied for a long time trying to get the best out of this suspension and the frame geometry. This is an outstanding handling package, and you know, for learners, I think it's great because you've got to learn the basics, you know, and you can learn them to a very high standard. And even the older blokes, you know, I think one of the things we saw today, Clubby, we got stuck a couple of times, and you know, on single trail and stuff like that, it's 134 kilograms fuel full. And so, you know, when we got stuck, I mean, I got stuck in some blackberry vines, I just dropped the clutch and spun it round. The brakes on this bike are fantastic. That's a whopping great big front disc. I think it's 260 mils or something. And it's a one finger job for me. I'm hanging onto the handlebars, and it's progressive and powerful. Outstanding front brake. Same with the back. It's got good feel, and when you're coming into corners and you want to just, you know, bang the back out a bit and just slide it out, back it in, it does that beautifully. So really impressed with the brakes.
Ergonomics, Dave, including the seat.
Yeah. Ergonomics, it's funny, you know, in the first half of the day, you know, as soon as we sat on this bike, we said, this is a 4x2. And then the funny thing was we rode it, and then for 4 hours, we went, hang on a minute, this seat's not too bad. It's bad. We got to the 4th hour, and our asses are starting to ache. It's not meant for adventure, it's meant for dirt riding and standing up. So that'd be one of the changes you'd make, you know. In terms of ergos, for dirt riding, it's ideal for my height at 178 centimetres. I love the bend of the bars, the Renthal bars. I'm really happy with all that setup. the activation of controls, all that is really good for me I'm kind of average. So Clubby, it's the year of the dragon, the Chinese year of the dragon this year. Chinese New Year's coming up. That's lucky, and it's the most powerful animal in the whole Chinese calendar. But it's also the year of the 450s. And it's interesting Honda bring this 450 back into Australia at a time when there's a whole new dumping of 450s this year. It's a very exciting year for adventure riding. The ones that have really, the competition that I see with this for adventure riders is obviously the Himalayan 450. You've got the Cove, and then you've got the CF Moto. And I've got to say there's a lot of interest in that CF Moto. And that's just the beginning of the year. We don't know what's going to happen next. We've heard a whisper there might be a Yamaha, but we've heard that before. But so where does this bike sit? Well, I've got a Husky 501, and I see it being a direct competitor to the Husky 501 KTM 500 group. Those people who want the 5-day tripper, for Simpson Desert, Victorian High Country, Cape York, those sorts of rides, 5 days, small oil capacity in the engine, only got a litre, and by God, you can hear it rattling around in that engine.
So Dave,
Yeah,
let's just say, hypothetically, you were a CRF450RL owner.
yeah,
You're out here for your 5-day high country ride of a lifetime,
yeah,
a couple of 100 kilometres a day.
yes.
Okay,
Not
and
gonna
you
ask.
and you and that Bible you've been referring to all weekend.
Yeah, the Honda
says
manual.
you were to change the engine all at 1,000 kilometre intervals.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to run the 5 days just with the oil in it. It's probably against any principle, and the tech heads will come along and they'll say, no, sacrilege, sacrilege. As long as it's new, the highest quality oil you can get, yeah, it's going to deteriorate. I just run it, and because when you're in stuff like this, yeah, you've got a lot of load on the bike some of the time, but a lot of the other time it's just putting along. It's just doing travel miles. Just cracking out the distance. So it's not under that much load. It's not in adventure riding isn't racing conditions. So, but I look forward to the controversy on that. Some people have a chop at me about that.
They will have a chop at you, Dave.
Well, it's time to wrap this baby up, and we can't leave before doing a section on the good, bad and the ugly. And we need to talk about the 450's strongest competitor in the world of adventure.
All right, Dave, it's your turn for the wrap-up. I want the good about this bike.
The good about the bike is the handling. It's incredibly stable, and a lot of that's due to its wheelbase length and that lovely slack fork angle. And the suspension. They're the two standouts for me. Yeah, the engine might be down, but that's the standout for me.
All right, let's flip the coin. What about the bad? And leave me one real ugly to wrap it right up.
If you're going to ride adventure, we did 4 hours. I can't do any more clubby than 4 hours on this seat. It's not happening. My little touche just can't do it.
All right, and I want one more point from you, Dave. I want your top 5 mods straight off the cuff if one of these was in your shed for 6 months.
Top 5 mods in order that I do them. Bar risers, fuel tank, seat, maybe a bash plate, maybe some racks, because I'm worried about the heat from that exhaust. Unless you want to cook TV dinners in your soft luggage, I think you're going to need some soft racks.
What are you doing, Dave? You're boiling the kettle, mate. Making a cup of tea. The old can runs hot on these things, doesn't it, mate? How's your bag going under there, Dave? Lift that bag up and show me that tape on that plastic.
Let's have a look. It's hot.
The heat transfer is ballistic, mate.
That is hot.
Yeah.
That is really hot.
Yeah.
That is hot. Right, that's
Sizzling.
sizzling hot. Clubby, your key competition is right beside you on either side. Now, time to choose, and we're going to give you 3 categories. Really tough adventure, Simpson Desert, Victorian High Country, Cape York. Which bike are you going to pick for adventure?
Step stage right, or stage left to you.
All
450RL every day of the week, mate. For your tough adventures, shorter mileage, tough adventures, yeah.
Okay, longer adventures. So the big miles, going out to Cameron Corner, you know, heading down to Victoria. What are you going to pick?
Oh, mate, every day of the week you'd pick the 300, wouldn't you?
Right.
Every day of the week.
Okay, so the final one, you've got a limited amount of cash and you've got to put your money down for adventure. What are you going to pick?
Oh, mate, look, every day of the week I say it again, it's going to be the 300, but what I'm going to say to people is, you've got to know how deep you want to go into the jungle. That's my expression. With these particular lightweight singles, deep in the jungle, hardcore, 450RL. Longer distance, want more comfort, 300 Rally is a ripping little beast.
Okay, tell me the key features that attract you to the Rally.
To the 300 Rally. Okay,
Yeah.
what it is, Dave, now my adventure riding is, I want to drive out of my garage, turn left or right, and just keep going. And I can do that on the 300 Rally without having to think where I'm going, what I'm going to confront, what I need to carry. On the 450RL, I would have to consider what the ride is going to be composed of. And that's the difference. It's a bike, you're calling it dual sport. Yes, you could ride this thing to work when you have to, back and forth as a commuter. You don't want to.
I'd like
it's
to
like
see you
trail
do that.
bikes. Oh well, but yeah, you're going to get to the office with a sore backside. But you can do that. That's the definition of dual sport to me. And then you can jump into the bush on the weekend. But if you want a definition of adventure, you're going to pick the 300 Rally every day of the week. Every day of the week, the 300 Rally for me for adventure. And what is it specifically about that 300 that gets you stoked about riding it?
The first thing I'm going to say, and you might all laugh at this, is the engine refinement. It's a beautiful, smooth engine. Yeah, it's down on power, and if you get in the Victorian High Country and go for one of those, that's going to be a struggle. But it kicks along, and even in standard form, it sits on highway speeds, 100, 110 with standard gearing, and it does that well all day. The other thing is rider comfort. It's got a great little screen, and it's got a comfortable seat. I can sit on this seat all day. And the final thing is, I don't have to worry about 1,000 kilometre service interval. This does 10,000. So that's why, yeah, you need to do a little tiny bit of work on this. But the most important thing is the suspension stock is great for learners because the bike sits low in it. But for heavy dudes like me or people who want to ride it harder, you've got to get the suspension upgrade. But it is $10,500. This is $13,800. So there's a bit of difference. So you spend a tiny little bit of dosh on this and you get one that can take you around the world.
That's the call with it, eh? That bike will take you around the world.
We've got this young lady called Itchy Boots. She's riding this everywhere. It's doing the job. It's doing it reliably for her. Yeah, it's just a cracking bike and we love it.
To finish up this detailed review, we head out to Chris Watson Motorcycles, Cessnock, and speak to Chris. We're using his retail knowledge to get a pretty accurate pricing on the cost of getting this 450 ready for adventure. Chris rides a lot of different bikes, so getting his take on the 450 is also useful.
So Chris, Clubby and I have been down the Victorian High Country giving the CRF450s a bit of a run. Now this is your take on the bike, so interested to know what you think about it.
Well, I think this is a new mid-size introduction, dual sport trail / adventure, and quite reasonably priced. Honda's reintroduced the Honda 2024 model CRF450. Obviously out of the box it does need to be modified, changed and personalised to most people's needs, requirements. This one here we've done a Nomad 11.5 litre tank, which more fuel economy, not too big, run standard shrouds. We've put some decent Dunlop tyres on them. We've done the ECU for Vortex, and we've done the inlet manifold change out. We've just got Barrett. Jason has just designed and produced the first pipe for us, and they put some bark busters on it. Changed the gearing a little to make it a bit more for the open, and got a really good package.
I noticed you got a B&B bash plate as well.
Yeah, they don't come with bash plates, so B&B is a good Australian product. We do try to use Australian when we can. Yeah, Australia Day tomorrow, so it's all about Australia. Yeah, Barrett is local, BB, bark busters, Most Nomad, I think most things on this bike is Australian made, which is a rarity these days.
Can you just quickly go through the prices of the things that you put on the bike?
Yeah, one more thing we're probably not Australian is the little tail tidy. They're about
All right.
$49 and gets rid of a big long alloy monstrosity. The Barra pipes full system, which you need, way bigger in the header, tapered, and got the original style Barrett muffler, under $1,000 for the full system. About $240 for the B&B bash plate. Nomad tank, I think around about $695. Bark busters, the jets, a bit more room for your hands and levers, about $130. Instead of Dunlop tyres for probably $300. So it's not overdone, but it's definitely a good package, and it's a bike that you can use a lot and do a lot with it.
So out of the box, I felt the suspension was really good. Like I thought, just drive away. It seems really good.
Well, most of the smaller bikes, the rallies, the WR250R, all the small cylinder bikes have got issues with suspension, and you've got to spend a lot of money to do what you want to do. Out of the box, you haven't got to touch it. Dial it in, tweak it for your weight, set the sag, and generally the bike will do most things very well.
And the handling of it?
Well, Hondas traditionally steer really well. That's one thing Honda's always had, good steering bikes. Don't tuck under, don't let go of the front. Their geometry is very good, and this is a prime example of it.